Command, this is Third Claw. We do not know where we are. The map is wrong. The map has been wrong for 3 levels.
Hour 4 of a 6-hour ultimatum. Somewhere under the moon, Chrysomian, 900 meters down. A fire team of Cassine collection troopers stood in a dark, so complete, their instruments read it as a malfunction.
Command, be advised, our thermals are blind. The ore eats the scan. Our lamps are at 11%. We can hear them in the walls. They are not using lights. Why are they not using lights?
Somewhere above them, in a gallery, their map said was solid rock. A shift boss named Barbara Cowell checked her watch by touch, the way the old man had taught her, and gave the order this whole file hangs on.
Command, the humans cut the lights. Do you copy? The humans cut their own lights. They live down here, Command. They lived.
Static. Then from the dark, polite as a knock, a tapping. 3 taps. On the inside of the wall, the troopers were leaning against. This is the file on the Cassine Charter Combine, who came to take a mine and learned the difference between owning a hole in the ground and belonging to one. Chrysomian is an airless moon with a core like a bank vault. Iridium, cerium, the deep noble seams. You cannot farm it. You cannot breathe on it. To make a life there, you have to go down. And staying down has to be in your blood. The Sibmatka habitat, the mother shaft, was dug by Silesian mining families out of the Gliwis arcologies. The kind of people whose grandmothers still said Szczęść Boże, God's luck at the cage door, the way their people had said it going down into coal for 300 years on Earth. 4,100 souls, 9 working levels, a brass band, a chapel to St. Barbara, patroness of miners, cut into live rock on level 2, next to the graves. 3rd generation. The kids learned pressure door drills before they learned to read. The miners could walk their levels blind by rail touch and counted steps because on Chrysomian light is life support, and you train for losing it. The claim jump arrived on a Tuesday wearing a stamp. The Cassine Charter Combine had petitioned a distant registry to find the colony's mineral rights, quote, improperly perfected, end quote. Not stolen, reassigned. It was the 206th such reassignment in the sector. The previous 205 had all gone quietly. Baja Kowal filed the colony's protest within the hour. The Combine's legal office answered the same day. And because their answer matters later, the file preserves it word for word.
Your objection mistakes the nature of title. Paper is provisional. The code recognizes one thing only: lawful working at the face. The Combine works its claims. You merely lived on yours.
Keep that, they said it first. The ultimatum came down the public channel at 0600 in the voice of Commander Sarik of the Cassine Recovery Group, 4 cutters, and 900 collection troopers in orbit.
Occupants of the Chrysomian workings, your tenancy is dissolved. You are granted 6 hours to assemble on the surface with personal effects not exceeding 10 kilograms. Resistance will be recorded as salvage interference. We are authorized to recover this asset in whatever condition you choose to leave it. The clock begins now.
6 hours. 10 kilograms. 4,100 people with the graves of their dead in the rock and nowhere in the sky to go. The shift boss of Sibmatka was Barbara Kowal. Bazia, to the whole moon. 44, 3rd generation, a voice that could stop a runaway tram. She had no soldiers, she had shift crews, and she had Gerwazi Nowak, 71, master shot firer. The man who had fired every blast on Krezimian for 40 years, who still carried his grandfather's brass powder watch from Katowice, and who had taught a stubborn 9-year-old named Basia to walk level 5 blind, counting steps, 40 seasons ago. Her father's mentor, then hers. 10 kilograms. My lamp weighs 3. He laid 2 proposals on the plan table. The first was the defense of the levels. Basia approved it in 4 minutes. The second was Gallery 40, the old exploration drift that ran under the launch apron. Charge it, he said. If it comes to the worst, the apron is the argument they will understand. No. That apron is how our ore goes out. That apron is how food comes in. You are asking me to hold a knife to our own throat. I'm asking you to hold it where they can see it. She refused, remember that too. She sent the children and the sick down to the deep shelter on level 9 with the teachers and the band. Then she stood on a tram car in the level 1 gallery and gave the assembled shifts the whole plan. I think this is a building. Every crew to your own level. You know the work. 600 miners went down into the dark they were raised in. The band played them to the cages, like Barborca mourning, like a feast day. Anyone counting crews at the muster would have noticed that one was missing. Victor's heading crew, the best drive team on the moon, was not at the muster, and their gear was already gone from the racks. Nobody asked. On Krezimian, if the shift boss does not say where a crew is, you do not say it either. And in the shift office, before she locked the drawer with the true maps in it, Basia took out one old survey folder, the one marked Matkaduja, and put it in her jacket. Gerwazi watched her do it and permitted himself one remark. Paper people. 10 years they have owned that seam, and it has never once felt a drill. The Cassine took the surface in 19 minutes and called it a victory. They breached the head frame, seized the offices, planted their banner on the winding tower, and Commander Sarek recorded a proclamation for the registry with the moon at his back. Asset recovered, site secure. His adjutant then explained the paperwork. A reassignment requires vacant possession. The claim does not perfect until the workings are cleared. Every level, certified empty. 900 meters, 9 levels, and every one of the 4,100 occupants had gone down instead of up. Sarek was not a fool, and the file will not pretend he was. He had cleared stations and gutted freeholds across half the sector, and he had brought a specialist for exactly this. Surveyor Thess of the Osek Guild, a licensed extraction engineer with 200 years at the trade, who stood in the seized shift office, looked at the registry's tidy 9-level plan, and delivered his professional assessment in one sentence.
Commander, filed plans are fiction. Every working mine has a second map, and we do not have it.
Sarek weighed that against the clock and sent First Claw down anyway. It was not stupidity. It was arithmetic. 900 troopers, 4,000 civilians, a deadline of his own making. First Claw cleared level 1, the town gallery in good order. Empty, lights burning, soup still warm in the canteen. Several troopers reported this as worse than resistance. At 0731, they started down the incline to level 2, and Basia, watching the shaft telemetry with her hand on the master breaker, said the words, "Cut the lights." 9 levels went black in under a second. Not blackout black. Mine black. The black your eyes never adjust to. And into it, from vent pipes, and ore passes and tunnel mouths that were on no filed plan, came the sound of 41 pressure doors closing in sequence, level after level, like a giant unhurriedly buttoning a coat. The Cassine switched to thermal and learned that iridium-bearing rock scatters a thermal image like frosted glass. They switched to sonic mapping, and Pani Renata's teenagers, distributed through the vent network with tapping bars, filled the sonar picture with 400 phantom corridors. For 1 hour, it worked. Then Tess sat down at the seized console, listened to the phantoms for 10 minutes, and did something no one on the human side had planned for. He recognized the rhythm. Tapping bars are a miner's tool, and Tess was a miner too, whatever else his employers were.
Filter everything with a work cadence. Miners tap in threes, advance on hardline only, cable and stakes, and take me the fan house.
The file records the cost of underestimating him. Second claw on cable, ignoring every sound, reached the level 1 fan house at 09:02 and took it. And with it, the ventilation board for the upper 3 districts. The miner's air weapon, the slow suffocation of an invader's reserves, was gone above level 4 before it had ever been used. The upper doors could now be held open, the Cassine suit reserves recharged from the colony's own compressors, and Sarik's arithmetic improved by the hour. In the crosscut, Basia listened to the fan house go quiet on the wrong side of the board and rewrote the day in her head. The upper levels were lost. The defense would live or die deep at the level 3 throat, where every route down to the shelter passed 1 door. Gerwazi was already walking there. He called it in himself, by wire, from the rail. Basia. The 3-door has to be sealed by hand. The relay took a hit. I am closest. I have the steps. She had the authority to refuse him. She had refused him once already that morning, over Gallery 40, and been right. The file records 11 seconds of line silence before she answered. And the file does not know and will not guess what they cost her. Go, Pani Gerwazi, count them out loud for me. He got the door sealed. A Cassine squad leader, blind and panicking on the far side, fired a full magazine at the sound of the wheel turning. He was hit twice. His crew reached him 4 minutes later, in the dark, following the sound of his powder watch tapping against the rail. Slowing, then not. There was no music. The band was in the shelter. His crew stood in the black for 1 minute by the watch. Then his powder man, Ola, whom he had trained for 20 years, picked up his key ring. Szczęść Boże, Panie Gerwazy. We will finish the shift. Basia heard it on the wire. She gave her next order with a level voice, and the order was, charge Gallery 40. Until 09:58, the miners had been herding the Cassine, and the Cassine had been learning. After 09:58, the mine itself went to work. In the deep districts where Thess's fan house could not reach, and his cable lines ran out, the deep vents closed on schedule, district by district, and below level 4 the Cassine were back on suit reserve, rated in hours, in a clearance rated in days. Thess told Sarik as much. Sarik ordered the push anyway, 1 mass thrust down the level 5 decline toward the shelter, 60 troopers of 4th Claw, with the best remaining engineers. It was the correct military decision. It was made about 80 meters below the tailings pond. 30,000 tons of wet slurry, behind gates Gerwazi had serviced every spring. Ola fired them, The wave took all 60 off their feet and delivered them down the decline into the catch basin at its foot, packed, pinned, and alive. The basin was always the plan. Ola read the energy the way the old man had taught her to read it, and then the miners came out of the walls with shovels and dug their enemies out of the muck. All 60, fast, angry, and careful, because trapped men are trapped men, and there are 200 years of dead grandfathers watching any Silesian crew that would leave one in the ground. They hosed them off, tied their thumbs, and fed them soup. The helmet feeds of Fourth Claw eating rescue soup in a lamplit gallery, under guard by teenagers with tapping bars, reached Sarek at 11:14. The file preserves his response verbatim, because it is the moment the commander of the Kessin recovery group almost understood the day.
They dug them out. 60 rifles that came to evict them, and they dug them out. Thess, what does that make of my leverage? It makes your leverage soup, Commander.
Almost, because his conclusion at 11:41 was not withdrawal. It was the biggest lever in the toolbox. Collapse the shaft, entomb the workings, recover the asset by open cast excavation next season. Write off the contents. The contents, 4,100 people. At 11:43, the Whining Tower's demolition sensors, which Gerwazi had cross-wired to the mine's PA in the last week of his life, detected charges being placed, and every speaker on 9 levels in the surface works crackled at once. Commander Sarek, before you fire those charges, ask your surveyor to look at his own landing plat. Your cutters are grounded on our launch apron. The apron is undercut by Gallery 40. In the seized office, Thess pulled the plat, laid the colony's registered workings beside it, and went very still. The file records his exact words.
Commander, ground your charges. Ground them now. The drift under the apron is charged and has been since this morning. If the head frame falls, your fleet spends next season at the bottom of their mine.
We know how to dig things out. We would even do it, but you would be the contents. Occupants of the Chrysamian surface, your tenancy is dissolved. You are granted 6 hours to assemble at your shuttles, with personal effects not exceeding 10 kilograms. The clock begins now. Word for word. She had carried the ultimatum on a slip of paper in her breast pocket all day, next to Gerwazi's watch, for exactly this reading. The one weapon she had refused that morning, the knife at her own throat, was the one she ended the war with. Gerwazi never heard her use it. The Kessin recovery group surrendered at hour 5 and 51 minutes, 9 minutes inside their own deadline, and the file notes with professional respect that they assembled in good order and under the weight limit. The Kessin Charter Combine disowned Commander Sarek before his shuttle reached orbit. Contractors, excessive zeal. The Combine itself had clean hands and a valid reassignment, and would pursue its claim through proper channels. Which brings us back to the crew that was missing from the muster. Wictor's heading crew had not fought anyone all day. They had been driving tunnel, 11 kilometers through the ridge, on the survey line from the folder in Basia's jacket, into the flank of the Combine's own crown concession. The seam called Matka Duja, the richest iridium lens in the sector, held by the Combine for 10 years on paper, and never once worked, exactly as Gerwazi had said. Paper people, you already know the law. The Combine's own clerk had recited it to Basia on day 1, and the file replays it here so you can hear it the way she heard it.
Paper is provisional. The code recognizes one thing only, lawful working at the face.
At 1358, while Sarik's cutters were still climbing out of the gravity well, Victor's crew holed through into the Matkaduja lens, took their first ton of ore, and filed for perfection by first working. Logged, assayed, witnessed, time-stamped. The Combine's lawyers understood the shape of it immediately. Contest the filing, argue that paper beats work, and they would be arguing against the doctrine their entire reassignment business stood on, with 206 precedents ready to fall on them. Concede, and the Crown seemed securing half their credit line belonged to a brass band and 4,000 miners. They settled in 11 days. The Kursimian reassignment, withdrawn, with prejudice. Damages, the siege, the repairs, and a trust for the family of Gerwazi Nowak, master shot firer, killed holding a door. The mercenary contracts and the registry correspondence, published. The Matka Duja Seam, leased back from the miners who now held its working rights. At a royalty the file describes, in a rare editorial lapse as biblical. The other 205 colonies read the settlement. Paper appreciates, so does consequence. They buried Gerwazi Nowak on level 2, next to his father, under St. Barbara, with his powder watch and full honors, and the band played him down a gallery his own blasting had opened 40 years before. At the chapel, there is a row of lamps, one for every miner the rock has taken, and now one is for a man the rock never touched. His lamp is kept dark. All the others burn. The new head frame over the Matkaduja workings is named the Gerwazi. Basha signed the naming order as shift boss. And then, the clerks noted, she stayed in the office alone for a while with the door shut, and nobody on Kursimian has ever asked her about it. On Barborca morning, the feast of St. Barbara, the whole moon goes down cage by cage, with the band playing, and at the bottom, before the toasts, the shift boss calls for the lights. All of them off. 4,000 people standing in mine black. 1 minute, by the watch. Not because they are afraid of the dark, because it is theirs. This has been a file from the reckoning drawer. The drawer stays open, the playlist is on your screen, and the record, as always, will be here when you come back down.